Okay, Japanese BLs are on another level, and recently they're killing the game. Do I need to say any more? No, I don't think so. Roll the credits. Okay, I do have more to say. Today I'm gonna use the recent quality of Japanese BLs that have been coming out recently to really talk about like how they have changed the landscape of BL storytelling into completely something different. I'm going to use 3 case studies to explain this phenomenon. I'm going to use My Beautiful Man, Old Fashioned Cupcake, and Eternal Yesterday. If you haven't seen any of those shows, maybe you should go watch that first, but you can also understand without because I will give some context for the shows. These shows that I just explained are shows that just changed a lot about my viewing experience. I also want to just touch on other shows that have recently come to an end. The End of the World with You, Jack of Frost, and shows that just have began like Naked Dining and Our Dining Table. So there's 3 things that I'm gonna touch on why Japanese shows are really superior right now. And obviously, nothing is stationary. It's not gonna stand alone. Tomorrow, Thailand might change the landscape in a completely different way. It's really about what creatives are taking a risk on. But Japanese BLs always have given me deep storytelling that reveals something about the characters. I think this has always been true, but this is especially true in the last 2 years or so. Japanese stories are laid out so clearly. There's no confusion about the character's motivation or the reality that they're given. I've said this before about shows like My School President, which is a Thai show that I recently reviewed. But the story is fairly uncomplicated in Japanese shows, and if they are complicated, they are laid out in an uncomplicated way that you feel grounded within the story. We are invested within the characters all throughout. In the case of My Beautiful Man, for instance, we understand the motivation behind both Hyoe and Hira's characterization. In any other story, I think the show wouldn't work. We wouldn't see the nuances within their weirdness and the complicated dynamic they have with each other. We would only see the red flags. We wouldn't believe the mutual yearning that they have for each other. Every part of the story, even when they don't feel like they are really in sync with each other, it feels really tightly laid out. And that doesn't again happen accidentally. That comes from really tight writing, great directing, attention to detail, and overall just great casting. The storytelling that is laid out within My Beautiful Man is pretty unusual, the story itself. It explores the romanticization that turns into an obsession, and instead of taking this typical route within a story like this, it reveals something complicated about each of the characters. Insecurity and questioning of belonging, loneliness, without really devaluing the characters. A lot of shows, they're not able to do that as well. As audiences, we are given very complete character study that leaves us with more questions than answers about the characters, which is truly grounded in the reality of like humanness, right? The second reason why Japanese BLs are superior is in the characterization or laying out of characters. The characters are people we are deeply come to care for all throughout, especially when they're a fuck up and people that are extremely flawed. I have spoken on this channel about my love for characters that are incredibly flawed because that gives us a glimpse of our reality and our surroundings. I think this is really a rare talent as a creator to really be able to show all of these complete narratives without devaluing the characters. This is again a rare talent that typically lands really well within Japanese BLs that I've seen more than any BLs that I've witnessed, as they're able to give a preview of very mature and at times very uncomfortable relationship dynamic between characters. Within the first episode, you've grown fond of relationships and characters as their motivation and their reality is laid out with nothing to hold back. Nothing is really a taboo. My favorite example of this Old Fashioned Cupcake, a love story between a boss and an employee who struggle with their feelings for each other. The show is obviously weird and unexpectedly charming because it doesn't focus just solely on the element of the age gap, which be an easier thing to do in other shows. And I think that's like less appealing and we wouldn't talk about it as much. The show explores the intimacy between 2 people who are afraid of falling for each other. We grow deeply to love the characters. This is a story about imperfect people who are trying too hard to do the right thing throughout the story. And I think everything about their dynamic, everything about the dialogue, everything about the banter reveals all of that. What makes the show really stand out for me is that it is a workplace romance but it also deals with the complexities of adult relationships and midlife crisis that wouldn't be so appealing in any other show. In any other show, it probably wouldn't be as remarkable. However, it is incredibly affirming and intimate and really quite fun to watch. I think we can say a lot about Japanese BLs and maybe you could disagree, but one thing that we can all be on the same page about is that Japanese BL creators take risks. They freaking take risks like there's no tomorrow. Want to see a clear-cut polyamory relationship? They got you. You want to see a typical breakup story except one of the partners ends up getting amnesia out of nowhere? Yep, got that too. And how about the end of the world is coming and you're trying hard not to fall in love with an ex from the past who hurt you? No problem. However, we can't get more heartbroken and creative than one of my favorite Japanese projects to date that comes very neck to neck with my other favorite Japanese show, and that is Eternal Yesterday. The story is so unique and there's a reason why the internet went wild for it. The show explores Kochi and Michan's story after Kochi is hit by a truck in front of him and basically dies, and it goes through everything like grief, acceptance, all of that fun stuff. When I tell you I don't have really the precise words to explain the impact the show had on me, it's really true. It's quite heartbreaking, it's really sad, but it's also deeply explores grief, letting go, acceptance, and really just how we tell our stories. Their story is told by an unreliable narrator, which is one of the main characters, and every moment of the show is told so well. Not only are they able to illustrate the story using beautiful cinematography, colors, and overall mood, but the uncertainty around the narration and the story progression makes us uneasy as audiences, deeply invested in the well-being of these characters. This show is not the first one or the last one to do this type of narration, but also explore a more creative route as we see stories from liberation of food, the importance of comfort and family using just like rice balls, and deeply digging into the importance of unsaid things in shows like Jack of Frost. All these shows leave us with a desire to understand being a human even more. They don't leave us with a detest or like a complete answer for being alive, while never really pretending to have all the answers. And that, my friend, is all I need from a good storytelling. I'm deeply entranced by these stories, the creativity behind them, and what they reveal about the human experience. I hope and wish for more creative stories like this that are grounded in, again, desire to understand being a human, to understand a relationship dynamic, to understand the push and pull of relationships in general. I hope you're watching our Dining Table and Naked Dining, which are shows that I'm really excited about. I'm already invested in the characters. I'm already invested in the story. And yeah.